everybody, it's Matt and Julia, and this is Couple Minutes, episode 1, Beneath the Costume. Now, before we get into some of our meaningful conversation, Julia, why don't you tell us a little bit, how would you answer the warm-up question? What would we most commonly find little Julia Felico dressed up as a kid?
So my friends and I would commonly dress up in old-timey clothes. We would head out to some consignment stores with our parents, and we would find these rooms. I don't even know if they have them anymore, but we would dress up in old dresses and find hats and accessories. And then when we got home, we would pretend that we were statues in the front of our yard, and we'd be like mermaid statues and go like this. So when a car would drive by, then we were sure, we were convinced they thought that house had statues in the front yard.
It's amazing.
I know.
The people would flock to the neighborhood to see
would.
those statues. So for me, mine was kind of typical boy, kind of boring. I would always be dressed up as some sports star, usually a North Carolina Tar Heel athlete. And so that's what you would find me dressed up as. So this week's episode is built off of the idea that most married couples don't have hundreds of fights, hundreds of conflict or tension. We actually have about 3 to 5 over and over. They just wear different clothes, or they come with different circumstances. And what we're suggesting is that the first step to health in these areas of constant, consistent tension, or marital Bensons, as we call them, the little ball of chaos that keeps showing up beneath the costume. The first step of health is identifying them and naming them. And for many, this feels like a step back. It feels like, so we're acknowledging our fights. How's that good? But we're going to talk in the coming episodes about what you do when you name them, how it actually is the starting point, and then how you can engage them. But first, today's just all about naming them.
That's right.
And there's a lot of philosophies out there on what to do with your conflict.
That's right. And so we've heard of I guess what we would call maybe the 1, 2, 3 philosophy, where couples say, we just keep having these same interactions that are getting nowhere, but other than just making us madder and madder. So what we've decided to do is we get into these interactions, we look at each other, and we just say 1, 2, 3, and we have to forget it. We just have committed to forget and walk away and then just act like nothing happened. Well, in essence, that's literally just sweeping it under the rug, and that's really dangerous because that rug is going to keep piling up. And so we would really encourage you that sweeping it under the rug is definitely not the pattern that you want to aim at.
So let's share a few of our marital Bensons. So we're going to share with you 3. We've got more than 3, but these were just the first 3 that came to our mind.
Okay, the first one is our life pace and scheduling.
Oh, yeah. So I am very spontaneous in nature. I enjoy a breadth of things, activities all at once, which is not what I'm married to.
So I'm very planned. I like a lot of activities, but I like to focus on them in kind of like a linear way. And on top of that, the way I'm energized and kind of get refueled is in quiet and kind of some alone time.
Yeah, and I'm energized by arcades and talking to strangers.
It's actually true.
Yeah, so you can imagine, we have so much conflict on just the way we approach our schedule and our life pace. And you used to get so mad at me because I would tell you how exhausted I was. And then 20 minutes later, I'd get a text and it would be some friends. I'm like, let's go do this. You say, you lied to me. You said you were exhausted. And I'm like, I was. But now I'm energized.
And not to mention, we would be needing to take a trip to Walmart. And he would think, I'm so tired. We've had such a busy weekend. And I'm thinking, I'm so tired. So I'm thinking, we're going to get to Walmart and be really efficient on what we're doing. So we get there, and lo and behold, we have to stop at the Claw in order to get whatever, any arcade-like game that helps him have an experience that's positive and fun, helps refuel him. But to me, that used to be like, seriously, I thought you were tired, and now you're doing this? You're being so distracting? I was personally offended by that.
Who'd you run into that you had a conversation with? Actually, I met a guy in the back stocking the shelves. Awesome dude.
That's right.
So that was a constant area of tension. So we're actually going to come back to that in the next episode. We're going to give a couple practical ways that we've learned to talk about our schedule and our life pace without the conversation leading to another fight.
That's right.
And so that's the first one, life pace and scheduling.
Yep. So our second marital Benson is the way we each carry out responsibilities. So
First of all, what's that word? Responsive what?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So Matt jokes that he's not responsible, but he actually is very responsible. It's just kind of...
y'all, is this on video?
No, but it's in an irresponsible way. That's kind of how I think. It's
okay,
not really, but he's very responsible, but the way that he gets things done and the way he carries them out is just different than the way that I do it. So it creates some tension for us.
So you get things done as quick as possible.
That's right.
I'm energized by deadlines, and that's a constant tension.
And I also like to get things done ahead of time. So I don't feel at peace or at ease until I know that thing that needs to be done is actually complete.
Yeah.
Where you're fine to
process and progress are my friend.
That's right.
Yeah. And I enjoy getting things done before people realize they're late. Yes, exactly.
That's right.
So and you know that's actually, so in another episode we're going to come back to that's a difference. And we used to view the difference as a deficiency. And so if I did something at the last minute, it was morally wrong from Julia's eyes. And or if we're both taking a test and she does it Friday and I do it Sunday midnight before it's due, she should get extra credit because she did it the right way. And we learned to engage that. So
right.
the third constant tension was communication styles.
That's right.
The way that we prefer to communicate.
So I've always the way I communicate is more direct. It's really, I've used this word a lot, but efficient. I just kind of am precise on what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And Maddie is just more fluid, and he's more, he just has a lot to say about it. He's more positive and he's more happy. I kind of visualize it like he's got all these pillows around his words and he's kind of bringing me into them. I can hang out with him while he talks about it. And I'm thinking literally when we first got married, I was thinking come on, just a little bit quicker. What are we talking about here? It's so bad to think about that.
And I'm building it up. Building it up. As you think, just give me the punchline.
That's right.
Yeah. And you know, your directness was not wrong, but I would receive it as fighting words or mean and sharp. And
rude and just not very personal.
Yeah. And so we would regularly have a conflict, and then we would get in a conflict about how we were talking about the conflict. And I know you would be like, are you kidding me? This is so exhausting.
And then I was confused. And then I couldn't.
What are we fighting
What are we
again?
even fighting about? Because remember, I'm kind of linear in my thinking. I'm thinking, this is not on my playing field right here. I don't even know what we're talking about, and I'm exhausted.
Yep. And I'm like, don't we love each other? Why are
Pillow around it.
So those are three of our marital Bensons: life pace, scheduling, the way we fulfill responsibilities, and our communication styles. And what we've found is that if you learn to identify these, and how do you actually? We'll pause there. How do you learn to identify them? Well, a couple years into marriage, early on, we asked this one question. Here was the question: from what I know about Julia, and from what she knows about me, what are a few things that if I were to do them consistently, it would promote health and prevent fights? If I could just do three things, immediately they were scheduling things, immediately they were fulfilling responsibilities on time, immediately there were things like that. And that just highlighted these are our issues. And for you, it was similar. I remember you wrote down making room for spontaneity in the schedule, speaking to him in life-giving tones, etc. So whenever you identify them, we would suggest that it's very helpful and it can be hopeful.
And it can be helpful and hopeful because it's a little bit like when you start to feel really overwhelmed about all you have to do. Very commonly, people will say, well, just sit down and make a list. And often what you find is that, yes, you've got some pretty big things on the list, but it's not as many as you think. and you can look at it and kind of tackle one at a time, and then you can see progress, and that overwhelmed feeling can start to diminish a little bit.
Yeah, so marriage feels like that. Like all we do is argue. Actually, when you sit down and think about it, all we do is argue about 3 things. And that's this sense of, you know what? We could cut out 33% of our fights if we just engage this one, which is why it's hopeful to identify them. You start to see the breadth of impact in the culture of your marriage if you could learn to love and serve in this area or this area. So that's our challenge to you, is start by having some meaningful conversation. What are the consistent areas of tension and conflict that you have that show up regularly, the little balls of chaos, and begin to discuss those. All right, that's a couple minutes, episode 1.